feedback form in the green brochures. Could you all fill it and give it to me at the end of the session? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I just fill in quite a lot of detail on that. With me is Chris McDermott, and I have plants around the room. David Hicks and Dr. Samir on this table, and Darragh Loud, who is casually sitting at the back. And I will draw upon their expertise as we go through the course of today. So, thank you for coming back. This session is about you. Your questions are really important. If, in fact, your questions are the session. If you want to get into key areas for the future, things like CEF writing, or how to prepare for inspection checklists, fine. But I'd rather deal and get you thinking about becoming a brilliant head and the types of thought processes you want to get into. People get highly focused on inspection in Dubai, and yet it's this much of our jobs, right? And you've got to ask yourself, is it really the most important thing that you do every year is get the inspection grade? I'm of the school of thought that says what I do every week is much more important to me, and what I do every day is more important than that, and what I do in every meeting I have with a student, a member of staff, a parent, a governor, is more important than that. So it's headship is in the moment for me. And I think the great attribute that you all have is the ability to take one hat off, put another one on, and go to another meeting, put another hat on, and respond to the 5,000 questions you get every day well. So they're the sorts of things I'd like to sit and talk to you about. And in fact, for this session, I mentioned last time we met that we talk about vision and mission, if you wished as well, and how to go about that in your context. But I think the first thing would be, I'll open the floor to you. What questions do you have of us and each other at this point? And I suppose the difficult bit is getting through, what hard things are you dealing with that you need help with? Because largely you're on your own. Days like this are really good because you can get together, you can get away in a dark corner and ask somebody a quiet question. But this is a more public forum, and what goes on here, even though there's a camera, stays within these four walls. So, please ask away and trust the collaborative nature of this group. Everyone is here for everybody else. And like life, there's no such thing as a daft question. So, who would like to start? Oh, right. Okay, as a backup.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm not really allowed to ask a question because I'm sitting next to him, but I'm going to ask a question anyway. So I think, Rob, and by way of asking a question, I think what I'm doing effectively is I'm throwing it out to you and I'm challenging you to think where you're on a particular continuum. Because Rob has just stated a very idealistic and I think correct view in that what he does every day is more important than what happens at inspection, and that, in an ideal world, is the totally correct view. I don't think anybody could disagree with that. But I would say, from myself, if I was completely honest, that I know it's very important to me personally what inspection judgment we get at the end, and in as much that I hope my behaviour would not change if it was during inspection week or another week of the year. If I'm a consistent, conscientious, morally driven person, my behaviour should be exactly the same during inspection week as all the other weeks of the year. Having said that, I know that a lot of what we do is driven by inspection. Now let me just define that. When I say it's driven by inspection, I don't mean that we make immoral and dishonest decisions because of that. I don't mean that, in a sense, metaphorically speaking almost, we save up all our best lessons for inspection week or anything like that. We don't do that. But what inspection does for me is it gives me a template towards which to work so that it helps me in designing with the other stakeholders what my school should look like. So it gives me something to work towards. And just this week, for example, we've been revising. I've just got into a new school. I was the principal of Jumeirah Primary School for 3 years. I'm now the new principal at GEMS International School. So I've gone into a new school, and we are in the process of revising our CEF. Now, that is obviously based on the DSIB inspection framework, but what it helps me to do is it helps me to make my school a better place. It's not the only thing, it's not the be-all and end-all, but it's my aid and assistant, if you like, in making my school that better place. So I don't know if I've disagreed with Rob, but I've thrown out a slightly different view.
No, I mean, inspection just measures what you're doing anyway.
Yeah.
You can put on a show for an inspection, but a smart inspector will take that within a moment.
Yeah.
You just need to go and talk to the kids and say, were you doing this last week? And the kids say, no, it's all new in here. Yeah, that's new pictures. Kids are as honest as the day is long.
Absolutely.
And if you try to deceive inspectors, they're going to have it. It's really that simple. In talking about the purpose of what we do and the drive for excellence, that is there every day. That said, I would agree, any inspection that you go through is probably the best week's education the kids have. But and everyone suffers the next week through post-inspection dip. So there's swings and roundabouts about inspection. Overall, I would say it's no more important or less important than any other week. There's more energy goes into it, but there's a price we all pay for that. The stress of leading up to it, the uncertainty of the inspection week, and the oh, thank God it's over the week after. But beyond that, we've got 40 odd of the weeks of the year where it's important for us to deliver the highest quality experience for our students that we possibly can. And that's the best of pressures. And that's a dynamic pressure which gives us immense joy and pleasure when we see it going well. And I don't need an inspector to come and tell me when I see a good lesson or when I see a project come to fruition or where I see my teachers absolutely thrilled with something that we've done, or students coming up and telling me they've had a great day, or better still, they've had a great week. Or even things I do, I actually go out and track a student for a day and have a look at what they're doing, how they're doing it, and why they're doing it. And it's a great experience to share that with your students, but it's also a great experience to see what their day actually looks like. And yeah, I've got to clear my desk, and switch the phone off, and get away from all the other things. And when I'm finished, I think, wow, that was great. I'm pleased I turned the phone off, and the school hasn't burned down when I've been in this classroom. So it's one of these things, you've got to show a degree of determination to get into it. But the benefits are incredible coming back. And I talk about driving and measuring, but also recognising the fantastic things that happen in the school. For goodness sake, every one of you put in at least an hour a week away, so you go out and find the great things that are happening in your school. Don't just tell people that they're successful, tell them why it's successful. And then encourage them to go and share it with their colleagues. And they're the foundations from which great schools are built. And that's the energy you can give. But, you've got to give that out. And you've got to get away from these things and up and around and move and seek the greatness in your own school. And that's why I was trying to get back to principles about running a school. And I had a quick chat with Darryl about an hour ago. And one of the things we suggested, I'll do it now, is open up with you a discussion about the importance of the three key players within a school and where they sit moment by moment or day by day with you. You've got parents as stakeholders, or dare we use the word customers, Darryl? We've got our students, which is the purpose for us being there every day, and we've got staff. Now those three corners are always in balance, and it's a shifting balance depending on where you are and who you're talking to. Every one of us in our hearts, the first question is, what's the most important thing in the school? For me, it's not the buildings, it's not me, it's not my board, it's not my teachers, it's the students. And building their capacity to grow and learn. But the stakeholders, the parents, are the ones who pay. And ask questions about what rights the parents have. What rights do they not have? How important is it to be available to them? How important is it to be visible to them? And then the students, which is the focus of all that energy and drive and all that professional expertise that you hope to attract to your school, and then energise them to become the best they can possibly be. But it's, how are you finding this? New to Dubai? Is it different? Do you find parents demanding here? Do you find children demanding here? Do you find staff demanding here? And you're probably going to say all of the above. But has anybody got any experiences that they'd like to talk about? Or do I just pass it over to Darren, who's quite happy to talk for a little while?
My name is Darren Cloud, and I was a principal of GEMS Modern Academy, and I'm still a part of GEMS. I've moved up a bit. I'm looking after a few more schools. But basically, when we finished our first inspection, I disagreed. It was my attitude, not the school's attitude. I disagreed with the inspectors and I shared with them we were an Indian school and we had to look at things the Indian way. So he asked me what the Indian way was, and I didn't have the answer. Because and he was very clear, we are an international place, international curriculum, and the best practices across the world. And we had to move. I had to move my attitude first, and the whole school moved with me. But basically, if you ask me what my competencies are, and it's always important you are competent in something, and use that strength, look at the strength of people around you, and move what you feel where your school ought to be. My competence lies in driving customer focus across the school. I don't like the term customer, I don't like the term stakeholders. It's always been children, parents, and teachers. So what we did in this wonderful school that's 28 years old, we made sure the teachers we brought into the school first. That was my first priority, because it's always about children. So I had to make sure that the teachers we brought into the school were happy, they were looked after, they were met with at the airport, they were greeted. We peered, we had peer support. I made sure to visit their accommodation and having a meal with them to see if they were happy. And we did these little surveys which just lasted 10 minutes. Were they happy with the school? Anything that we needed to do for them? And then we focused, while they were being made to feel a part of the team, we focused on teaching and learning. Once their needs were met and they were happy, we focused on teaching and learning. And for me, being an Indian school, it was important that we collaborated. And we had a wonderful school. Chris knows I've worked with him very closely across the schools to understand what it is to move away from being just an Indian school to basically benchmark ourselves with other schools around the world. And that was a huge learning curve. Indian teachers, everything is teacher directed. And we learned to move away from being teacher directed, from the teacher being in those days, the guru and the chela kind of thing. A stage on the sage, and to be a guide on the side. So we moved away from that, and then we started working, and I can tell you collaboration is the key. Moving away from teachers, their teaching and learning, assessments, benchmarking, and using data correctly, because we worked with people and we collaborated, we had to make sure that parents also bought into this, and that's where we focused on parents. Parents are very troublesome, and they've given us loads of trouble. I can't even tell you what trouble they've given us. But we brought them into the school, and we called them Friends of Modern. We made them represent their classes right across the school. And believe me, is this being recorded? Parents are troublesome? Knock it off the camera.
Occasionally.
In other parts of the world.
Sometimes parents are troublesome. But when parents come in, basically the trouble part is left out of the school. They come in, they're friends of modern. They come in, they're part of your team. They engage and they are involved. They're engaged with their children, they're involved with the school. We make them partners in the education process. And believe me, today, modern strength lies in its parents. And then we looked at children. Do you know children can take responsibility for their own learning? Do you believe it? Or is it just a KHDA mandate in learning skills 1.3 in the framework? No. 1.3. You have to believe children can take responsibility. And we blanked out the good and acceptable and unsatisfactory, and we only gave our senior pupils what it is to have outstanding learning. And they worked with teachers, they collaborated with teachers, and that sharing across the school, teachers allowing students to assess, brought about a huge change in the school. That was our strength. And Morton for the first 2 years was rated good, and for the last 4 years we've been rated outstanding. So it's your customers that basically...
If I just follow on from what Darryl said, and we're in danger here of being a sort of mutual admiration society, but I will say, because I've said this outside this room and when Darryl's not been in the room many, many times, I've visited lots of schools in India. I've been to India several times in a professional capacity. I visited schools, so I know the stereotype that Darryl talks about. I guess you know it very well. So what Rob talked about at the beginning was mission and vision. And if your vision is just to please your customers, that is one vision. But then I guess what's going to happen is you're not going to move. Because I guess, and Darryl, correct me if I've got this wrong, if his main and only goal was to please the paying customer, the parent, the school would have remained as a traditional Indian school. So what he's done is he's had the courage, and this is about leadership rather than management, and we can chat about that later on, because we were talking about the difference. Management is one thing for me and leadership is another thing. This is about leadership, because leadership is about vision. And sometimes it's the vision of the whole community, and we've all talked, haven't we, about getting groups of people together, albeit staff, or maybe staff and students, or parents, staff, you know, gathering those people together and creating a vision with them, and that's obviously a good thing. But if you feel in your heart of hearts, if you feel within your morally driven, value-driven self, that what those groups come up with is wrong, is it right for you, and I'm suggesting that possibly it is, to say, right, this is what we are going to do. And sometimes, not always, not most of the time, but sometimes when you're a leader with a vision that you believe in absolutely, you must strive to get other people to follow you in what you do, as well as to make sure that you follow the hopes and dreams and wishes of other people. And I don't think Darryl School, and it's just one example, but one I refer to many times when I'm talking about leadership. That school wouldn't be where it is now if Darryl and other people in his senior management team hadn't had courageous conversations with people who were saying, why isn't my child coming into maths and starting every maths lesson by chanting the times tables? And I'm not against times tables, by the way, can I just say that? So I just want to throw that out there, because it's something about leadership, and it's something about vision, and it's something about being courageous, and it's something about being what we are. I know for me, there are certain things, if somebody said to me, Chris, you have to do this because I say so, there would come a point within those conversations that I would say, I cannot do those things because they break my code of ethics in terms of what I believe in as a human being. And for me, every single leader needs to have that sense of themselves. I'm not saying they need to be rebels, I'm not saying they need to be difficult, but I'm saying they need to have a sense of what they believe in. And the people who are your absolute allies are the people who will be honest with you, who will tell you when perhaps they feel you're doing something that isn't quite right, but basically they're on side because they believe in the same vision as you do.
It's very profound, that.
Was it?
Yeah.
I've been practicing that. I practiced it in front of the mirror last night. I said that last time. I don't think people believe me when I say these things.
Chris, if I could add maybe another dimension and see what colleagues would think of. And that is the dimension that we tend sometimes to forget, that schools are living organisms. They change, they breathe, they grow, they die. One thing we tend sometimes to highlight and sometimes to forget is the leaders with no titles and their input and their impact on changing the whole culture. Hence, encouraging them to take a role and a big role in what goes in the school. I disagree that inspection is not that important. I see how important it is as part or a subset of what goes on in our schools. Again, it intends to be for improving our schools. And one thing I remember myself first year, and then I remember myself 5th year of inspection, how less confident I was as the chief education officer supervising 10 schools, how less confident in terms of using the jargon, the importance of using their jargon, what majority means, what almost all, what might, and so on. Small things that some people think they're trivial or they're less important. It's being confident to understand self-evaluation, how to go about self-evaluation. The technical part here I'm talking about. And that's very important that the whole school talks that language. So there is the frame of reference that is understood and used equally to mean the same. And that's very important. So there is that technical element of how people get outstanding. And yes, how people get good, how people get accepted schools. So I would like to say that no matter what we say, yes, all my colleagues, what they're saying in terms of leadership, what our schools, without the right leader who sets direction and brings everybody on board, but equally so is that technical aspect of understanding the scheme or the framework and understanding how that would lead to improving our schools. Be it using data-driven. All our training, all my training as an ex-teacher was in improving achievement. But I never used a lot of data to improve attendance. Or I never used data to work on students' welfare and well-being, and so on. So I just want to say that, and as my colleagues rightly said, parents' engagement and the role of that, it's very important that we look together at both, so that at the end we get that win-win from improving our schools, but also getting, if possible, the good or the outstanding. And good luck to you.
Well, I'm only 2 weeks away from an inspection, so I'm struggling at the moment. Can I be clear about inspection, that it's not the be-all and end-all, is what I said. It's not the purpose as to why the school's there. But all external measures are good indicators about where we are and how we're progressing. Be that GCSEs, SATs, whatever system we're embroiled upon. We've got a series of external measures which help us measure where we are on our journeys. You're all in unique schools, you're all unique individuals, and you've been appointed, trusted by a board of governors to run a school which I would guess each one of you has a school which has its own core values. The core values, for me, are the things that don't change. We can look at a vision statement and look at, we're going to climb this mountain and explain why we're going to climb, and then we're going to say how we're going to get all these people up the mountain, a logistical exercise. But the thing that's never changed, and my school's coming up to 40 years old. Now, I've met the founding head, she's still alive. But do we agree on the core values about what education's about? Yes. We are generations apart, but the core values which sit here, we're exactly the same, and we see eye to eye, and that's great for me, and it was great for her, but who's it really good news for? The kids going through, because whatever the vision statement, whatever the mood of education at any given time, if those core values are held true to, your school will continue to do well. And of course, vision and mission will change. The world is changing, and it's changing quite rapidly, and you will have to go and review, and you're going to have to set targets, and it's a bit like teaching, you set out for that horizon, and you get there, and my God, there's 3 more horizons ahead of you again, and you're set through the same process again. But the thing I can say to you at the moment is, you should be at a stage where you're getting underneath. Please get a look at what your school is really about, and you will have to dig and understand why they've appointed you. It was no accident. Your career, your effort, your thinking over time has led you to this position, and somebody's had the good sense to recognise you and hopefully trust, and they've got you in the right place, and you're the person who understands those core values in depth now. You've had a couple of months to look at your school. You should be getting that sense of you're the right person in the right place, and you understand what you see in your school, and you'll be getting ideas about how can I empower those core values in the context of 2015? How can I seek to empower them in the context of 2018? So where is education going against that really important background? And I suppose you've got to think about it in the context of building from within. If every time one of us stepped into a new job and we reinvented the schools, it would be a nightmare. And the people who would suffer the most would be the students, because they wouldn't know quite where their education was taken. They've got in, what is it now, 15-year run with us? And Dubai is great now, because when I first arrived here, 3 years was the average tenureship of a job. A lot of the parents I serve worked for Shell and BP and banks, and I met these poor fellas 3 years in Dubai and the next 3 years in Alaska. And you can imagine the state of them when they were hobbling out of school on the last day, feigning they had a broken leg and they had to stay in Dubai for an extra 6 months. That they were going off and they were heading off to some other part of the world. Dubai has changed in the brief period in the history of the country I've been here. People now are here for the long haul. They call Dubai home. They don't rent homes anymore, they own them. And when they lose a job, they don't pack up and go. They come in and say, help me with school fees for a term, I'm going to have another job. And you know what? You get jobs. And that's fabulous, because the work you do, you see the fruits develop. And one of the great pleasures I've had of working in Dubai over, this is year number 16, the kids who arrived as 5-year-olds are leaving now as 18-year-old adults. And that is fantastic. That is a fantastic thing to experience. I want to leave and get out before they bring their children back. That's the only thing that really worries me at the moment. But it is an incredible journey, and you will get from your job. I talked to my own staff in August about well-being. I don't like to talk about assessment 1 year and planning, and I thought, oh, let's do well-being. I've got a bit wild as I've got, is it more mature?
Yes, we had this little meeting we were both in last week, and we were described as both being very mature.
Not inspirational, just mature.
Seasoned. We were seasoned, yeah. So I'm going to the surgeon shortly to undo some of that adjective, I think. Anyway, go on. Rob, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about your students leaving at 18. And
Yeah, and over the most recent years, I've started to talk about what about creativity in our classrooms? What about curiosity? What about things that really underpin fantastic learning and driving a very, very strong learning agenda? But this year I focused on well-being. And it's had to say to staff, I really care about you. I really care that you're happy. And it sounds corny, it sounds horrible. I remember the words coming out of my mouth thinking, oh, this is not very professional. There must be a longer word than happy. But it was a sincere message. I want them to be happy, because if they're happy, I want them to work hard. But the result of that work ethic should be that they have really powerful teaching. And when that powerful teaching and learning results in the kids getting into a fantastic place, that's what gets us all here. That's the joy in the job, and that's the energizer in teaching and learning. We don't do this for the money. We don't do it for public prestige. We do it for those moments where kids have fantastic experiences and we recognise it. And that takes effort and knowledge and commitment and passion, and joy and happiness ensue as a part of that. And that joy and happiness is the driver for us to go at it again and again and again and again. And I talked about the children's happiness and what that brings, and that the teachers should care, and they should ask questions about, are the kids happy and engaged? Because quite simply, if they're not happy, they can't learn. So it was a 45-minute presentation. On the one hand, yeah, I used the term happiness, and I talked about smiling. Sounds a bit corny, but it was also very powerful at the same time, because the teachers have remembered that. They've remembered the fact they care. And 2 or 3 things inspired me to do it. One, I'd been asked to write a book and I wanted to write about this. Another one was Darryl talking at a principal's playground. And you must start and come to the principal's playground. Darryl opened up one day and he said, there's a teacher came and talked about resigning. And when Darryl asked about why she was resigning, she said, I miss seeing you around the school. you used to come and you used to pop in and you used to really invigorate and motivate us. Darryl, like all of us, felt a bit desk-bound and had given in to being desk-bound at that time, and then made a choice to get out again and realised just how important it is to be amongst our teachers. And an awakening moment at best, and a realisation for me that it was really important to shut up and let Chris talk.
No, it's okay, Chris only wants to talk for a minute. I just want to reinforce that. Recently, last week, I had a survey amongst my teaching staff. You know, that kind of survey that says, do you think I'm good looking? Do you think I'm, what's the phrase? Seasoned. Do I look inspirational, all that stuff. And I had a little box in there, what do I do well? So I turned over a few pages, lots of blanks in there, so we won't worry about that. And then the other one that you put in, what could I do better? And the reason I put my hand up then was really just to reinforce what Rob just said about Darryl, because in that example it was one teacher talking to one principal, but almost overwhelmingly in the box that I'd sent out to my staff saying what could I do better, overwhelmingly they said, we'd like to see more of you around the school. And I reflected on that and I thought, yeah, I don't get around the school as much as I should do, because I feel like all of you, and you'll know straight away what I'm talking about, bogged down by this meeting and that bit of the budget or whatever else we're involved in. And so I've set myself now, as Rob already does, the task of making sure that every week, certainly for a substantive period of time, and every day, if I can manage it, I get out of my office and get out there in the school with the kids and with the teachers, because it's so easy not to do that. And I'm going to sit here and say mea culpa, I'm sitting here with Rob at the table at the front here, but am I guilty of that? Yes, I am. Do I need to improve at it? Yes, I do. And however seasoned we are, or I am, of course I'm still learning every day. I'm still reflecting on my practice. I'm still wondering if in what I do on a daily basis, I am doing the best by those parents, staff and students that I serve. And sometimes I have to say to myself, Chris, you're not. So put your pen down, stop answering your emails, get away from that screen. I know you're on email 143 for today. Stop all that stuff. And even if it's just half an hour, get out there and walk around the school. And it's so nice because the kids come up to you, and you know what, particularly the primary school children, but actually all of them, they will come up to you and ask you how you are, be pleased to see you, and give you that wonderful gift of a smile. And I don't know about you, but the only smiles I've ever got from an email are those silly things that you do when you press a colon in a bracket. And I've had one of those, but none of those ever match up to the smiles I get from the students.
Can I just add one to that? I instituted an email protocol at the school, which I think I've shared at the principal's playground. No emails after 5 o'clock. It raised a storm of protests from the senior leadership team because they start working on their emails after school hours. But it's always important for us to know what we do to ourselves, what we do to our schools and to our people. Because if you send a mail at 7 o'clock, I'll give you a bet that somebody else will try to match your kind of timings. Someone who's trying to make, someone who's impressed and wants to make an impression on you, she would reply. If you send a mail at 10 o'clock at night, someone would reply to you. And believe me, I think if you're looking at wellness and well-being, it's the happiness factor that counts, and people, it turned modern on its heels or on its head. The moment we started this email protocol, it took a little time, but I think everyone started relaxing after 5 o'clock in the evening, and no emails on Friday. Saturday, you were in the morning, 3 hours, to just prepare, send out mails to prepare for Sunday. That was our email protocol. I think Dr. Abdullah decided to have the same protocol at KHDA, but he went one step further. He took it out from the servers as well. He wouldn't allow any mails coming from the servers as well. He took it one step further.
I'm shocked. I check my emails at 10 o'clock. And what do I do first thing the next morning? 7 o'clock? I check them again. It's lunacy.
That's really
Absolutely.
Really what help. Even I have learned from you only this particular way, and I used it in my school. I told all my parents, if you're sending a mail before 6 o'clock in the evening, you can expect a reply saying that, because I told my teacher not 5 o'clock, but 7 o'clock exactly.
Or be brave and go for 4 o'clock.
So, but it really takes time to convince parents, also staff, of course, but it takes time to.
Yeah. It's the new first in, last out syndrome, isn't it? It used to be whoever got their car at the car park first, they had the big kudos about being first in and then last out, and you're always watching in the car park when you left your school. Now it's electronic messaging. Right, we've got about 5 minutes left.
I thought I'll just share my thoughts with all of you. So we being a new school, giving a different perspective altogether. When we wanted to set up a school in this place and when we inquired about our neighbors and other Indian schools around, the picture they gave us about the DSIB and the inspectors is that they were something of similar to some monsters or something like that.
Another
But
planet.
when we actually read the DSIB indicators, I mean, when we read through all the factors, all the policy, I mean, all the indicators and all the parameters that they've set up, we as educators felt that if we actually follow them and set them up, we will be setting up something like an ideal school.
Yes.
And we really liked it.
Yeah.
And
Setting
since then we are
standards.
working towards it. We are getting into the nitty-gritties, trying to learn those areas that we are not familiar with, coming from an Indian, a very strict kind of atmosphere, etc. We're trying to move and learn all the nuances so that we will reach the levels that KHDA is expecting.
Yeah. You have to understand how
Yes.
difficult it was 6, 7 years ago when this started, because it was change, it was threat, it was new, it was all those horrible words, and it was a challenge. And DSIB, I think they would say they weren't perfect year one. It's improved and developed over time as KHDA has evolved. I mean, it's only 8 years old now. It's past its 8 years old, and look what they've achieved over 8 years. They've brought in and run for 6 or 7 years an inspection system. They've got into things like what work. So they've shifted. They've developed quality control in the first instance because before that, if you wanted to be a good school in Dubai, you just had to go and tell people. There were no measures, there were no controls, there were no parameters around it. And in those days, it was very rare that heads in schools would actually talk, unless they were close by and there was a natural network involved. But it would be very unusual for a school in Dira to be in touch with a school in Jumeirah. And places like Arabian Ranches or whatever didn't exist. They were just patches of desert at that time. So there's a completely different paradigm around Dubai now. And after they've established quality control, Dr. Abdullah has moved KHDA into quality assurance, a developmental approach as well. And that's helped the inspection system to mature at the same time.
Last week I happened to attend the principal safari conducted by the KHDA for the new principals. And the kind of reception that they gave us, Dr. Abdullah himself handled the whole session, and the kind of cooperation that they gave us, assurances to help us with and make us understand every the aspect that we want to understand. It was a different thing altogether from what we heard about them before.
Okay, so you've met your boss. He's been really kind and available
Yes.
and supportive, and you're smiling and it's meaningful.
Yes,
Do the same for your teachers.
yes.
That's a basic message. One word of warning, and it's a standard you should all write down somewhere, is when you walk in your corridors and people ask for something, never ever say yes. They'll catch you. Say, I'll come back to you, whatever. You know, I'll go in and think about it, but never say yes when you're on the room. Right? Okay. Oh, God, I just need a new blackboard. And you're like, oh yeah, not a problem.
I will resign. You can say yes there.
Yes, okay.
Could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has said that the strength is within, and most of my answers come from us. But if I need to choose a resource person as a principal, and I'm relatively new to the Dubai scenario, how do you suggest as a principal I should go about once I identify a gap somewhere and I feel my own staff or my own competency level cannot handle it. So how do you think one should go about doing that?
Two answers to that. Probably your competency level is good enough to handle it, but you just need to talk it through with someone. That's a natural way for us to clarify our learning. We know that. That's part of our classroom practice. I would just say learn to pick the phone up and have confidence in your colleagues. You're stepping into what is becoming a very strong and powerful collegiate network. So if you want to talk to Chris or me or Darryl or other people in this room,
Can you do that?
of course you can. Of course you can. I'll send you the bill.
Say it really loudly.
Yeah. But no, seriously, what is happening now, and one of the purposes about getting this group together is you get to know each other. So that collegiate network becomes founded in you, you get to know other heads. So we were talking with was it Joe and a couple of people from KCA and said, you need to start bringing different heads in to put in front of you so that collegiate network grows. We're heads just like you. We face the same problems just like you. And I need to talk to people just like you. With all the experience in the world, Dubai is great for throwing up a problem you haven't seen before. And if you're honest with yourself and you're honest with your colleagues, you'll pick the phone up and ask. We had a thing about security here last week. So I rang up Brent Much at the American school, knowing that the American feedback on security was probably more important than anybody else's. And it was. And he really settled me down, and I then contacted 3 other schools. So 4 of us sent out an identical letter to our parents. Why? Because basically I'm a coward. I don't want to send out that one letter and feel as though I've got it wrong. And I was much more secure that 4 of us hadn't looked at it, and I think about 8,000 parents got the same letter as me. There was no problem, there's no direct threat to the UAE, but it was great in a difficult situation when you had to account for what you'd written on that, to share it with colleagues. We went a stage further. For the first time, 16 years I've worked here, and it's the first time we've sent a collaborative letter out. Now, the schools I'm talking about are friendly, just we hadn't had the good sense to sit down and say, what do we need to say? And the confidence in each other to know that somebody wouldn't go and send a better letter out a minute after everybody sent theirs. And that worked. And that's, for all it sounds really simple, it was a really nice moment. And it's great for me that I had the security to talk to my colleagues about what I was thinking, and they were thinking the same thing. I think around you and the same thing, Chris. And there's better ways of working, and we're talking about collaboration in the classroom. Why are we frightened of collaboration? We shouldn't be. And it's about trust, extending that trust to your colleagues. And
I believe there was something which was started, like say the principal's wall, where he said, okay, we are ready for this and things like that. Nothing happened after that.
well, I think what we need from you now is, are there any topics you want us to come back and talk to you about? So, any specific issues where let's say you come as interpreting data and how you use data to inform school development. At some time we could bring in a head who we know that is a real strength. So I think throwing it out to you now is the areas of concern, the areas of development, or areas where you just need more information about living and working in Dubai, where you can give us a list of topics and we can go away and have a discussion about which heads we know within Dubai who can come and talk to you about.
So you put it in the feedback form.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. We use it through the feedback form. I was trying to think, you're talking about how you get in touch with us. Just pick the phone, honestly, I don't have everybody's phone number in Dubai, but I know everybody's got a website. And I'm cheeky. I'll go into the parent portal, get a number and say, it's wrong, I've got a problem, I need to talk to you about this. And I think people have got quite used to me over time. I'm not one, nor should you be one to bury a problem or hate from it and worry about it. Rather than spend a day worrying about it, I pick the phone. And that's the bit I've learned over time. Just don't worry about something, just get on with it. And people are willing to help.
It's very reassuring to hear that.
Well, I stepped into an environment when there were 70 or 80 private schools in Dubai, and they were all islands.
Exactly.
And Jess, our enemies were Des.
Yeah, completely.
And now we're friends. At least we're pretending to be friends, But there was a culture way back at Jess where the two biggest rivals in the city apparently were the head of Jess and the head of Des, and I think they openly fought. But you know, the world has changed, and I think one of the things KSDA Works has done is broke down those perceived barriers between schools. And of course, we're in a fairly unique environment where 90% of education is devised through the private sector anyway. And we've learned over the last 2 or 3 years we have an awful lot to offer each other. An awful lot, at all sorts of levels. And that's from the classroom right up to board level. So I'd just say, trusty colleagues, pick a phone up and ask the question. Okay, so if you feedback on your forms, areas of concern, areas of development, areas of interest, then we'll put a list together. We're trying to plan we'll get another day for a title for it, a leadership day, where we intend to invite all of the heads into Dubai for one session. We're going to talk about national agenda. You know, we've heard a lot about national agenda in the context of maths, English and science. It also includes Arabic. We've got things like Arabic hitting 3 to 5 year olds. And I've asked if KSDA can come along and share their thinking with us, and I'm being selfish here because I have to recruit to that post for next September. So I need to know what I need to recruit to. They also need to listen to us about what we think. It's a clean sheet of paper approach, this one. Looking at, you know, what should teaching look like for 3 to 5 year old children. My view is play related in the moment. Do I need somebody with an Arabic degree to do that? Maybe not. I could have a really good early years educator who can speak Arabic. And that will do a fantastic job with these kids. So I just want to engage and have those discussions with them. And there are various other areas of interest which we really need to come together and just have 3 hours. Within that, if you want, for you as a unique group, I think 50% at least should be spent with the main body of heads, probably 60 or 70%. But if there's 1 or 2 sessions or areas of interest for you, again, we'll set them up and try and bring in speakers for you. Right? Thanks for coming back again. Bring more friends next time, we'll fill the room.
And don't forget what Rob said, you know, because what you fill in terms of your feedback will inform us and the KHDA what we need to put on any programme that we're going to offer.